All right. So my name is Morgan Pruitt, and I'm the Outreach and Assessment Librarian here at CCCC. And my email address is listed here on the slide, as you can see. You are always welcome to email me with any research question or concern that you might have. And it doesn't have to just be that you are working on a research paper that will be for a grade or will be from some sort of assignment. It can just be a personal project that you are working on. So what we're going to talk about today is the Gale visualization tool, and we'll talk about how to use it to narrow a topic, searching summon and what that means and how that will work. And then we'll have a small activity just to kind of refresh, what we've learned and put it into practice. It will be somewhat interactive, but not too intensive. So the main frame for thinking about research today is research is a strategic and creative process, meaning that it is not always going to be the first search that is the most successful search, and that's okay. The main thing is that with each search, we learn as we go, and then we use various strategies for coming up with not only our topic, but also how to search for that. And that can be looking for the best source and then using that as a jumping off point, brainstorming keywords. We will think about how limiting certain results that we get may help us to find better results. We'll think about how adding keywords to an already established search string can help us to find information. There's a lot of different ways of finding research in the library. It's just a matter of finding out what works and then continuing to build on that process and build on those results that we get. So first, we're going to talk about narrowing a topic. So when choosing a topic, it's typically part of the research cycle. It will inform how and where to look for information. And it may change as you conduct your research. If you're familiar with research, if you've done a lot of it, then you are well aware of all that is required when you do research and the changes that a research topic may undergo. So if at any point your research changes, that's okay. That's part of that process. Again, it doesn't have to be finalized before you start searching. I always find that discovery of information actually helps to make my research better and to make it more positive and to make it a stronger research topic in the long run. So here are 3 tips for choosing a topic. First, be curious. Just keep an open mind. You might have an opinion on something, but try not to get too settled into that opinion as you look for information. Ask questions. Goes along with being curious, but learning to ask questions will help you to narrow down which keywords to use, how to use them, and where to look for that information. And then finding an argument. Finding the argument may be the thing that people struggle with the most, I think, because it's like, where do I fit within the conversation? And it just takes time to figure out what it is that you want to say, and that's normal. And again, what you may want to say will change as you go through the process of learning more about your topic. And so if it changes, that's okay. As it evolves, you will find a stronger argument and more research, and will feel more confident as you go. So avoid choosing a topic that you know too much about already, especially that I think is flexible. But if you're trying to find information that is going to enlighten you or expand your horizons, sometimes if you know too much about that topic or you know a lot about the topic, it can almost feel like too much, because you have your kind of set opinions. And sometimes that can impede what information you might be receptive to. And then if you really want to learn more, it might help to choose a topic that you don't know much about, because everything will be about that learning process. Again, if you have an assignment for research that you're required to do, or you have to turn something in for a grade, you may not have as much flexibility in that sense. But for the most part, if you have some flexibility, then you might try picking something you want to learn more about. So finding some background information can be very helpful. Basic facts, people, dates, or places, laws, anything that might relate to just some background information to give some context can be very helpful in narrowing and choosing a topic. Specialized language used to discuss the topic can be very useful. I will say that vocabulary can be challenging, because if you're not sure about the topic itself, maybe it is a new topic for you, then specialized language may not be in your wheelhouse yet, and that's okay. So the specialized language might be part of that learning process. So as you do more research, you might get a hold of more specialized language. That's part of that process, that strategic and creative process. So if you're like, I don't have that specialized vocabulary, no worries, not a big deal. That's part of the learning process. Asking questions. So starting with basic questions will get you jump started and will help you feel like you've got some traction. And then you can get a little bit more into the research with more complex questions as you go. Who, what, when, and where can be great ways to start. And then why and how, that can help build to more complex research because you're asking more complex questions. Again, if you're like, I don't really have any answers to this, that's okay. That's what the library is here for. We're here to help spark that creativity and spark that curiosity. And so we want you to be successful. So if you have any research question, you can just ask the library and we'll be happy to help. And we'll be happy to help you navigate as you ask these questions, ways to answer those questions, but also ways to explore more complex questions. So determining the scope, meaning how broad or how narrow do you want your research to be? And again, if you have a research project that's been assigned to you, that might be beyond your control. But if you've got a little bit of flexibility, this can be challenging, but here are some things that may help. So scope is through the lens through which you view your topic, can be very broad or narrow. You kind of want to find a very moderate view, at least when you get started. And then as you go, you might get more specific. The main thing is that as you do research, you want to keep in mind your scope and start thinking about the things that you interact with. Are they going to be within that scope, or do they sort of fall outside of it? When you first get started, it can feel very overwhelming. The main thing is to keep an open mind. And as you start to do more research, you can start to identify what fits within your scope and what does not. So one of the things with scope that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which has helped me, but I also hope that it will help you in thinking about it this way. So a lot of times in mindfulness or in yoga or sort of meditative practice, they ask you to think about your thoughts or your own stretches or your thinking processes, your experiences without judgment. To just sort of think through, this is what's happening. That when I stretch my left arm, it's a little crankier than when I stretch my right arm. There's no judgment there. It's just an observation. In the same way, I think scope can work very much the same way. Less judgment of this is bad or this is good, and more, okay, this might not fit now, but it might fit later. Or this is what I'm interacting with. This is what I'm seeing. Let me keep that in mind, but let me not make any judgments hard and fast right now. Those can come later. You might ask, who's being affected by the topic? What are the controversies and impacts of the topic? When are the important dates related to the topic? where are the places most relevant to the topic? Again, you might not ask all of these questions, and you might not frame them in the same ways, but they can just kind of help you get some traction. And then finding the argument. Choosing a debatable topic. So you want to choose, when you're choosing a topic and when you're narrowing that topic, you want to choose something that is actually something you can argue about. So, and when I say argue, I don't mean like fight. I just mean you make a claim about, and then you can support with evidence. So subjective viewpoints differ based on experiences and values. Analytic, a solid argument often requires research or that evidence to support that research or those claims. And then controversial, I think, when we say controversial, it's things that have counter arguments. So if I wanted to argue that that the sky is blue, that's really not a great place to start. But if I wanted to make that a little bit more complex about maybe the ways that the reasons for why the environment is changing so quickly, that might be one of those things. I wouldn't necessarily argue that the environment is changing because we know that it is, but we might instead argue about the various reasons why it's changing. So just a quick review, and then I'm going to show you some things that I think might help as you visualize and think about your research. So be curious, ask questions, and then find the argument. So here's a place to start. Even if you're like, all I have is just a very broad topic, I don't even know what I want to search for. Here is a tool that you can use. So Academic OneFile, this is through Gale, which is just one of our vendors. It's a topic visualization tool that will help you identify keywords and possible arguments that you can use to define the scope of your argument. So this link right here is actually a video on how to actually use the tool itself. I'm going to show you how to use it today, but if you forget or you're like, I really don't want to watch the whole presentation now, I just want to watch the video of using the tool, then this link will be very useful for you, and you will get the slides after the presentation. So you'll be able to view that video again. So let's go ahead and actually do that. As I get to the library homepage, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you have something you want to say, you can always drop that in the chat as well. So I'm going to go to the library's homepage, which is cccc.edu/library. And you'll see here we are on the library homepage. And the way that I'm going to get to the database is I'm going to go to the database tab right here. I'm going to click on that. And you'll see there are 3 ways to search for databases. I'm going to be a little bit more straightforward in this sense. I'm going to go to the A to Z listing, and I'm going to select all databases, the letter A, and you will see here, obviously, Academic OneFile is one of our top choices. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And a lot of the Gale databases actually have this topic visualization tool. So it can be very useful as you are looking through a variety of databases and also a variety of topics. You will see here under the search tools, here's your topic finder. And so we'll go to the topic finder. We'll just click on that link. And you can visualize in a couple different ways. Does anybody have a topic that they want to try searching for? You can put it in the chat. We could try it. If not, I can definitely search something else. Oh, okay, allergies. Okay, so we'll go ahead and type in allergy. We'll just kind of keep it one for right now, but we can always expand later. Oh, social media is a great one. We can check that one in a minute too. So when I search for allergy, There's a couple different ways I can visualize it, either through tiles or the wheel, and we can look at that in a minute. But notice here, it gives me some ideas for things I might start to research. Maybe I'm interested in food allergies and food hypersensitivity. So I can click on this tile right here. And what it does is, you'll notice it gets a little bit closer and it gives us some more specific keywords. These are things that I can use to research in the databases. I can use these keywords as I see fit. You will also see to the side, this is going to show me some results of conversations that people are already having about this particular topic. So maybe I see 5th pediatric allergy and asthma meeting. Oh, okay, so maybe that tells me I want to research a little bit more about pediatric allergies versus any other type of allergy. So now I'm getting more specific. And then I can click even more on these tiles to see things that are a little bit more specific to each one of them. But this is a great way to just click on the keywords to see what conversations are out there. And it's also a great way to actually gather keywords. And so when we think about keywords, we're thinking about those big concepts that are in our research topic or question. And we can use these terms to search for more information. So we can look at mental health, or we can look at therapy, patterns, that kind of thing. Some of these keywords may be more useful than others. It just depends on what you want to find. But these can be great ways to get started. Okay, let's try social media, but this time we'll try with the wheel. So you can do this as many times as you need to. You can click on social media and then, or search social media, and then it will change what it is that you are seeing. We'll do the wheel here. And so it just depends on how you want to visualize it. It's totally up to you how you do that. But we can look at online social networking, and then we can look at news, and it gives us a little bit more information that we can then search for. Does that make sense? How you would use this tool to find not only keywords, but also other issues related to the topic? Oh, great. Oh, I see the little thumbs up. So fun. Does anybody have any questions right now about this tool? Okay. It doesn't look like it, but feel free if you have any questions or you're like, I want to play around with this a little bit more. I'd be happy to. We can definitely do that at the end and play a little bit more. So this would be a great way to find your keywords and your ideas, whatever's happening in the field, your arguments. Now what you could do is write down some of that information, and then you could use it to search the library's databases. So that is what we're actually going to talk about next. Oh, and again, that link that you see there, how to use the visualization tool, that's going to show you how to do that in a little bit more detail. So now, exploring the databases. So databases are really very useful because they give you access to a variety of information in a very organized and subject-specific way. So has anybody ever tried to search for academic material in particular on Google? Maybe you use Google Scholar, or you might have used some other kind of online search tool. Yep. Okay, yeah, looking for a .org. So sometimes what happens is it is overwhelming, yeah. What typically happens is you get a lot of results, then you have to parse through that information, and you're not sure if you're looking at websites or newspaper articles or academic articles. And then when you finally find the newspaper article or the academic article that you want, you're like, yes, this is it. You click on it and it's like, hey, why don't you pay $95 for this article that you just want to take a peek at? No offense, probably not the best use of your money if you don't even know what the article's about. Maybe you just wanted to look at the abstract, but the abstract's not available unless you pay for it. I personally would not pay for something that I haven't seen. So it's kind of like if you went to Amazon and you just started purchasing things before you read anything about it or you read any of the reviews. The library gives you the opportunity to get access to that information. And if you really do decide that that's what you want and that you do want to purchase it, you kind of go in knowing that that's what you want to purchase. But if you don't want to, if you just want to do some research and just kind of scan what the library has or what's out there, then the library is a great way to do that. So a database, again, is a collection of organized resources. And then using one allows you to search subject specific. So we just went and looked at the databases a little bit alphabetically, but you can actually search databases for very specific ones. So I'm going to show you really quick how to find them. And then we'll actually talk about searching Summon. So Summon is the default search, and it searches all of our electronic materials, all of our databases. But if you really just want to focus on a specific subject, you can do that too. So again, we're going to go to the library's homepage, cccc.edu/library. You can see our database tab here. Here's our Summon tab, our default search. This is really great for broad searches. This database tab is very useful for specific searches. A to Z listing or find by subject or find by format. Either way, you can get to the same spot, but we'll do find by subject. I think of these as very useful if you are very focused or passionate about a particular topic, or if your field of study is a particular topic and you know you really write towards that particular topic or subject, this can help you focus a little bit more. So I'm going to look at the humanities. And I see here the arts and humanities database. I can then search in this particular database for just arts and humanities topics. Same way with nursing and health technologies. Here is a nursing database. So if I'm only going to focus on nursing, this might be a good place to start. If I don't know what I really want to find yet, Summon is going to be a little broader and going to be a little bit more diverse in the kinds of things and topics that I get. So there is that option for you. And how you search the database, how you search Summon versus how you search the databases is not all that different. The only thing that's really different is the visuals. So some databases are going to visually be laid out different than Summon is, but you can search using any of the strategies that we're about to use. They can be applied to any database. So again, keywords are those big ideas and topics in research. And the first thing you want to do is once you've got your research question, or at least your research argument, what you want to look for, then you want to start thinking of some keywords. My suggestions are to read as much as you can and to stay curious. The first search will probably not be the best search, and that's okay. I can tell you, even as a librarian, my first search is always a little chaotic, and then I start figuring out what I really want to find, and then I start to narrow it down. Again, that's where that strategy and creativity come in as you are doing research. So sometimes the keywords are right in front of you. So you might think about keywords from your own life, especially if you know a little bit about the topic. But you can think of any words or phrases that might be synonyms of those keywords, any words or phrases that you think researchers might use, related words, spelling variations, plural versus singular, or even brand names. So I'm going to give you a little example here. Notice here that we have some keywords like social media, learning, school, and children. But we also might think about, here are some variations on those words, whether they're synonyms, brand names, or related keywords. So a scholar might use social media, but another scholar might use social networking sites, and they're really talking about the same thing. They really mean in their conversation and in their research how social media affects learning. They're talking about the same thing, but they're using different keywords. This helps us to capture as much information as possible that still relates to the scope of our argument. And then combining those keywords can be a process as well. It's very much about strategy and how you combine those keywords to make a search that will bring you the information. So our Boolean operators are and or. I will say there is a not, but not pushes sometimes things out that you actually want to keep. And or are going to be your safest bets and still bring in the information that you want. So and narrows a search a little bit. Facebook and young adults. So now all the results that we get are going to combine both Facebook and young adults. So those articles that we get will include both topics or both keywords. If we're looking at or, that's going to open our search up a little bit, Facebook or Twitter. So some of the articles we look at will focus on Facebook and some will look at Twitter. Now, they might be in both, but really what we're telling the search when we look for or is that we want one or the other. They don't necessarily have to have both. So, and narrows or expands. Parentheses help us to use synonyms and to expand our results and to really get the kind of information that would be beneficial for us, but still allow us to focus a little bit. So in this case, we're looking at education and Facebook or Twitter. So in this search, we would get results that focus on education and Facebook or education and Twitter. And that allows us to look at more information without being too overwhelmed by results. The parentheses, though, keep the synonyms or the similar related concepts together. And then quotation marks, you want to be careful with these, but they can be very useful, especially when you're looking for something like social media, young adults, or social networking. You're really looking for that phrase. You're not just looking for social, and you're not looking for just media. You're looking for social media together. So quotes is going to make it a phrase. And so if you have things in quotes, the results will be focused on whatever phrase is in quotes and then whatever keyword you are looking for that is joined with that keyword. So in this case, we're thinking about education and young adults, and we may also find education and adolescents. Again, it just allows us to expand, but it keeps us focused on we're looking at for that very specific phrase. So does that make sense? Do those search tools make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, perfect. Awesome. And so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to practice with this. And then we'll do a little activity just to kind of cement everything. And then if you have any questions, just let me know. And we'll go from there. So let me go back to the library's homepage. And you will see here's our summon search. And before I move on, I do just want to point out really quick, if you are struggling with research and you want an instant answer, of course you can always email the library, but let's say that you really just need help like right now. You can't wait. Here is the Ask the Librarian chat. You can type your research question into here or tell them what you're struggling with, and they can help you right then and there with your research. And it's available 24/7, just not on federal holidays. So that is a very useful research tool should you like to use it or need it. So when we search Summon, we're searching all of our online articles, books, videos, and databases. If you are looking for physical materials, like actually books that you can pull off the shelf, the catalog is going to be your best bet. But for some, and this is for that digital content. So just kind of be aware that this is not necessarily going to tell you all of the things that we have in our libraries physically. So let's try searching for social media. So in this case, we'll try searching for social media and we'll combine it with relationships. So notice here, our results will relate to social media. It's in quotes because we're looking for that very specific phrase, and relationships. So all the results will focus on those two keywords and concepts together. And the full text online box is checked, meaning that I can read it right in front of me online without having to just read the abstract and then try to find it elsewhere or have the librarians look for it. You can click on it, read the article right then and there, and decide if that's really for you or not. And then peer-reviewed. So peer-reviewed, when we think about peer-reviewed, we're thinking about academic or scholarly materials. If that's what you need for your research, then I would encourage you to check this box as well. But it's not something that you have to have. It just depends on what your research project is. So we'll click on the little magnifying glass here, and that will take us to our results. The main thing to think about is you can always revise your search from this point. You're kind of not ever stuck with the results that you get. You can always revise. And if you're starting to feel stuck, if you're like, I just don't know where to go at this point, you can always ask the librarian on the library chat, or you can email a librarian. Either way, we're here to help. And notice here, if you decide that you later want to uncheck peer reviewed, you can. And then you'll get newspaper articles and videos, a variety of information. Just depends on what you want to find. You could limit and narrow based on content type, publication date. So sometimes if you have an assignment, it can't be it can't be older than maybe like 5 years. If you click on this, it'll push everything out that's older than 5 years. If you wanted to focus on a discipline, you could definitely do that. And then you could also do subject terms, and you could limit to languages. If you can read in another language besides English, first off, you're amazing. I cannot. So I would want to limit to just things that are in English because that's all that I can read in. But if you can read another language, first off, go you. And then second off, there may be some articles here that you can read from some other sources too, that we might end up pushing out if we just select to read in English. So this is a lot of results. 8,000 results is quite a bit. So some other things that we can do are add some keywords. So we might add, let's see here, and maybe communication. And that's going to allow us to look for narrowing results to just material that is about these three concepts together. You could change up your keywords. You could try different ones. Let's say, for example, though, we have just decided that we like what we've got, but we want to learn a little bit more about what we have. So notice here we have an article that's peer reviewed. It'll tell you that. You can, of course, click on this link right here and copy that link and save it. So you can always come back to this particular article. You can cite this item, or you can email it to yourself. Whatever works for you, you can always keep that article. And then you can also explore a little bit more about the article itself. So I can click on Just Be There, Social Media Presence, Interactivity, and Responsiveness, and their impact on B2B relationships. And then when I click on it, it will take me to the article. So kind of just keeping some things in mind. Here is the full text. So if you need page numbers for whatever reason, there will be a full text button out there somewhere on the page. You just got to look for it. But now you've got the article there and you can read it with the page numbers. And it looks very much like the traditional kind of academic article that we're used to seeing. And then you can also explore a little bit more about the journal itself, European Journal of Marketing. You can see that it's peer-reviewed, full text. It'll tell you we have it from 1992 to now, although it is delayed 1 year, but at the end of the day, you're able to kind of see a little bit more about the journal itself. And you can do that with pretty much every one of the results that you get. As long as it's full text online, you're able to see and interact with it in very much the same way. And then you can download it. Notice here's your download button. Here's your cite button, email, print, all that good stuff. The main thing, again, whenever you are searching in different databases or whether you're searching in Summit and the article is located in a different database, the main difference is that it is visually different versus being a different kind of online text, meaning that what I mean by that is you might say, well, I can't find my full text button. It's probably there. It's probably just located in a different spot. So don't give up. If you're like, I really want this article, but I can't find it, just email me and we'll see if we can find that full text or if it's located somewhere else or if it got moved. Main thing is you can find what you need. It's just laid out differently depending on the database itself. Okay. Are there any questions about that? Does that make sense? We can also set up virtual one-to-one consultations. So if you are interested in meeting with a librarian, you can schedule an appointment here, and I'll drop that link into the chat for you. And what you can do is fill out a time and a date, and then just tell me what you're working on, and I will basically meet with you and we'll work through your project together. And the goal is that you would leave the session with, if not the skills necessary for searching the databases, but also some material in hand. Just depends on what you want to accomplish. But hopefully you'll leave there, you'll have your skills and you'll have some material as well. So whether faculty, staff, student, or community member, you can set up a research appointment and we'll be happy to work with you. And you can also, and I'll say this again, I know everybody's busy. So setting up an appointment might just not be your thing. And that's okay. We're all at different spots in our life. So you can also just email me with some questions and I can give you some suggestions as you look for research. And email appointments might just be the way that you want to go, and that's totally great. Feel free, though, if you have any questions, to reach out, and I'll be happy to answer those questions in whatever way works for you and your research project.